Since we-
I'm so sorry I messed up. When I count back from 5, we're going
It's okay.
Alrighty. Alrighty, 5. 1, go ahead.
Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Dr. De Silva. This is a TV show where your voice matters. This is actually my second season now, second year doing this show. And it's not a show where I bring on celebrities, athletes, politicians, things of that nature. It's a show where it gives you an opportunity and our guests to be able to talk about something that they're really passionate about, or something that they really would like to leave as a message for posterity. So if you can have, I ask them, if you don't have 30 minutes of fame, but 45 or an hour of fame, what would you talk about? And that's pretty much the show. And I believe in an African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And what John F. Kennedy also said, ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. I say, let's take one step further. Let's ask what a community could do for each other. And that's what we hear. It gives an opportunity for some of our guests to get exposure where perhaps they would not get otherwise. And that's pretty much it. And today we have a guest, Jeanine. Welcome, Jeanine.
Thank you. Congratulations on your second season.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for having me.
Please, yes. Jeanine, so tell me, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, I am passionate about many activities and things, but I am blessed that I am working as a graphic designer and that I'm able to work with nonprofits. Almost exclusively, I would say 80% of my business is helping nonprofits shine, and that's what I want to talk about in the next few minutes.
Fantastic. And tell me, what made you decide to work with nonprofits? What is it about you that chose to do that, or is working for profit companies?
Well, I started out right out of college at the Metropolitan Opera, and that was my first experience with nonprofits. And I was in-house graphics, and I was there for a few years, and it was amazing. And when I left there, I did go to a for-profit company. I was a publisher's clearinghouse, and I loved that. That was a wonderful experience. But when I had my son, I decided I wanted to work a more flexible schedule.
Okay.
And I was able to transition to be freelance from my home office. And I went back kind of to the Met, and then through the Met, other people that would leave the Met, say in development, the development or marketing department, would call me, and they'd be at other nonprofits, and I'd help them build out their material, and it kind of grew organically, and it was just such a special experience to help them to, design really creative packages, whether it's direct mail or help them with their gala events.
Right.
And so it was really special. It kind of happens organically, and it's nice to be selling a nonprofit versus a product.
Okay.
There's something really deeply satisfying about helping a small organization get their message out there. And what I don't think, all nonprofits realize is that some of the smaller ones, they might be a one-person development office.
Okay.
And they obviously can't do all the work that needs to be done by themselves. So it's really valuable to have a designer to be able to call upon and say, hey, let's team up and build, create this event, or can you help me package this material? So I have a donor that I want to present to, and so that's what I do.
That's wonderful. So tell me, so basically like you just said, it may be somebody where it's a one-person type of situation. What's the biggest nonprofit that you basically have provided your service to?
Well, I did help out the Metropolitan Opera. Besides their in-house graphics,
Okay.
for a good bit of time, I was helping the development department with their direct mail packages.
Okay.
I also helped out on a few special projects with the New York Philharmonic, with their patron department. I have helped out Jewish federations in North America. They're in Manhattan, and they have in-house graphics as well. But there's the departments, they get in the weeds,
Exactly.
and then the development director and the marketing person might say, "Hey, can you give us a hand with this?" And then they'll call me in for a special project. It could be their quarterly newsletter, it could be direct mail, or it could be, patron packages or gala events.
Right.
And then the smaller nonprofits or the medium-sized nonprofits, they might not have, typically don't have an in-house graphics. They typically don't have a big agency that they're paying. They have maybe a development person, maybe an associate under them, and a marketing person. And they really need help getting all the material created. So I help them, as well as, like I said, those one-person development
Right,
shops.
exactly.
This one firm organization, their programming was in Israel, and so the development office was in New York, and so she would call me and say, "Hey, I have to build out an invitation or a direct mail piece. Can we do that?" So it's been really neat working in all different size
Right.
places.
So how long have you been doing this, would you say?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you've seen, or maybe more than one thing that you've seen that has really changed in your industry, within the field, as far as working with nonprofits? And I guess some of the challenges with working with some nonprofits is maybe the funding or that are out there.
Well, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of nonprofits out there, and the space is so crowded. Like online, if you're doing Giving Tuesday, so Giving Tuesdays, I would say, I'm not sure how many years Giving Tuesday has been out, but it's trying to get through the clutter and showing your story.
Right.
People, I think the way you talk to people as an organization, you need them to understand what your mission is, and you can do that best by storytelling and explaining, why it's so valuable.
Right.
And why they should support your mission.
Now, I want to ask another question, which is off top. Well, not really. I was wondering, what made you decide to go into the field of graphic design anyway?
Oh, well, in high school, I really did not enjoy math, and I really loved art. And I actually went to the cultural arts program in Syosset. I don't know that it's still there, but I don't know they call it the Cultural Arts Center, but it's, I think, high school for visual and performing arts.
Right.
And I studied art there half days, and the other half I was at Lou High. And that, my teacher there said, well, I said, what am I going to do for a career? I can't paint for the rest of my life. And she's like, oh, no, you can go into graphic design. It's this great field. And then we started looking at art colleges. And when you go off to art school, you choose your major immediately. It's not, you can't be undeclared.
Right.
So I had chose advertising design, and I went to FIT in the city, and so 2 years there, and then you have to declare even more specialized in upper division, and so then I went into graphics, and it's been great. I love everything about it.
Right.
I love problem solving.
Okay.
Because it's not just making a page look pretty. That's not useful.
You're right.
You have to solve a problem. You have to communicate effectively. You know, you need to make sure there's a call to action. You know, you help the reader go through the page, and you hopefully get them to react.
Right. So, you said you've been about 20 years. Have you seen what has, as far as the technology, how has it changed? How has it been, you know, enhanced in many different ways for the work that you do? I really don't know anything because when it comes to art, I know buka. So, yeah, I would like to know more about that. I'm just interested. I'm sure the viewers will as well.
Well, things have sped up. People expect things much quicker because we have the computer. The computer's a tool. That doesn't make you an artist, a problem solver. It's just it's a tool.
Right.
But with that tool, a lot of, say, administrative assistants, the organizations will go, oh, well, I have an admin, and I'll just get them these programs, and they should be able to, you know, take care of this. And then this is one of the problems that has come of, you know, in the past 20 years.
Right.
Whereas you always needed a design firm to do this, and then, you know, with desktop publishing in the 90s, there was that transition where they thought, okay, they can do this on their own.
Right.
And then their little flyers got no reaction, and they didn't look so wonderful, and it's gotten better. People know they need professionals to help them solve their problems.
Course.
But that's one. Of course, the web. So whereas most of your material you designed 10, 15 years ago was print, now a lot of the material you don't necessarily need to print. You can just do it digitally with your
Right.
social media. You still need the art. You still need the same things created, but it's living in a different space. You don't necessarily have to print it. And once you print it, you know, then you have 500 books or 500 sheets.
Exactly.
And then you say, oh, well, I want to change something. That's kind of the nice part about the digital world is you can edit. It also can be a bad thing because you don't stop futzing with it.
Right. Right.
So it's interesting. But I'll make like ebooks that people can throw on their website, and it can be downloaded, or they can send it as a PDF to their donors and say, oh, this is a little more about the organization. But if you're doing a large ask,
Right.
I think it's better to have some really nice printed. You need a combination still. Like a while ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, oh, print's dead. And I have not experienced that. We're still printing.
Right. Wow. And let me ask you this: as far as the 20 years that you've been doing this and been involved with this, what has been one of your most rewarding parts or aspect of doing the work that you do?
Wow, that's a great question. Recently, one of my clients, we did the gala, and the gala materials. I helped out with the gala materials, produce the materials, the journal, and even the menu that went on the plates
Right.
and everything. And the director, she really did. She brought in so much money, and just being a part of that, she got so much more money in 2018 than she had the previous year, and it was just neat to see that increase. And I've been working with them for a few
Right.
years, and just to be part of that, it's special, to know that we're bringing in more money for the programs. So I enjoyed that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And what would you consider one of the most challenging things in your field?
Challenging. I see. I like working with like the development and marketing directors.
Right.
And if I'm working with a client, and I think one of the most challenging things is when we're working together, but then you have to present not me, but the director would present to, say, the board of directors.
Right.
And everybody has an opinion, and what I want to say to that room is but it's not about the color you like. It's not about the font you like. You know,
Right.
one, we're staying on brand, or two, it's really about the donors and the people you're trying to get the message out
Exactly.
to. So to have a lot of changes that may not be the most beneficial to the end product, you know, because we're trying to please someone that may not recognize that,
Right. Okay, good.
is challenging.
And also, as far as what do you envision? I mean, for you, what would be an ideal situation where you get commission, or you get to work for? What would you hope to do in the future, as far as like, what, that's my dream situation, or my dream job? What would that look like?
Well, I am doing my dream job. You can always use more clients, and the clients I'm going after are, I like having a relationship. I like working and solving the problem together. I'm happy to bounce ideas off of the marketing or development director, whoever it is that I team up with at said organization. And we say, okay, let's look at the marketing calendar, the development calendar for
Right.
the year, and then we, I'm looking at the plan and what their vision is, and then I help them create that. That's fun. That's fun for me. I like, talking about it, and then I really like when I have the copy in hand,
Mhm.
and we've already discussed the strategy, and now I'm at my desk creating. So that's my favorite part of the day, is in the morning. That's my best design time. I keep that sacred. I make my appointments in the afternoon usually, and that's my favorite time, doing that, and being able to see a bunch of projects for one organization complete.
Right. So, so talk more about also, as far as like, when somebody hires you, to come on board, what's the logistics, the first process of working with everybody else that's involved in that particular project? How does that work?
Well, if they're on the island or in the city, I will come in and we'll meet and we'll discuss the project. And I was just discussing a project today, working on a news bulletin for a school out here, and I'll be doing their alumni bulletin. And so we met today, and now I will go home and work up a package, and we'll start working on that next week. And we build in a timeline, and we discuss the particulars, and then I get it ready to go to the printer. Am I answering that correctly?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just I'm just curious, because
Yeah.
I just don't know how that works, and I think it's so interesting.
But what makes it different, what makes it different to work with me is I am very attentive. I listen well. I try and hear and reiterate what the mission or the point of the project is, and say, okay, did I understand this correctly? And and then, I adapt. We go along with the project, and I make sure it runs smoothly.
Right.
I'm deadline oriented. I'm thoughtful, and I pay attention to the details because they're important. My development director or my marketing director, they don't really need to. I don't need them to really worry that it's a high-res image, for example, for a print piece. I mean,
Right.
I have to explain it to them, but I'm like, no, I can take care of this, but this is what you need to know. And I'll explain something. There's a lot of jargon in the design world and the print world and the digital world, and there's differences in file sizes and things, and I'll explain that. I'll say, well, and they go, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, well, it's not your job to know that. That's my
Right.
job to know that, and I wanted you to know it because this is why I need it. I don't want you to think I'm, asking, if you send, for example, if you send me a picture from your phone and you have a compression on and it sends me a small, tiny JPEG, I'm like, well, that could work for our web material perhaps, but it may not be large enough to print. So then I'll explain until we get the right file.
Right.
Because I want it to print well.
Exactly. Wow. And so, how do they locate you? How do they find you?
Well, a lot is through word of mouth. I have clients that I've had for years, and they may leave their organization, and if they can, they bring me to the next one, or and then I'll retain the old client as well.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a website where I promote my services.
What is that website?
jldavisdesign.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I try and participate in the development world on some of the group pages on Facebook
Right.
or LinkedIn, but a lot of word of mouth.
That's fantastic.
So.
And tell me, as far as all these years of working with nonprofits, again, what has been one aspect of it that you felt like, you know what, maybe 20 years ago was this way, where like it's changed in the past 20 years?
Changed.
Or maybe it hasn't. I don't know. I'm just asking because I've.
Well, from my end, from the design end, working, it hasn't changed for me as a designer working with a marketing or development director, other than maybe the direct mail packages have scaled back. It is expensive to do the mail, and depending on how large an organization you are, the larger ones, the Metropolitan Opera and New
Right.
York Phil, they're of course going to keep doing these because they can do 50,000
Right.
in a mailing. And, but if you're smaller, to do a mailing of 3,000 or 5,000, it's a little tougher. So I definitely see that scaled back. But the galas, the way people are working, they're definitely using social media more.
Right.
Again, I'll build out the art. If we discuss a campaign, I'm going to build out the art for that. But you probably would have a social media manager,
Right.
or maybe one of the associates under the development department or the marketing department would build that. But I certainly can get art for that unless they're using their photographs and they don't have a need.
So do you see that they're using more of a social media format? Is it because maybe less cost,
Yeah,
more cost effective, or is it because also it's a combination of that? Basically, they're perhaps able to get more of an audience, perhaps, or be able to get more exposure that way. I don't know. I'm just asking.
I think that you have your older audience, which is
Yeah.
always going to be your, I don't want to say always your high-end givers, but they have more money, the older audience. So you still need to reach them the traditional route, even though some of them are on social media. But you want to start getting your millennials to give, and they're great givers. They're giving on a smaller scale,
Right.
but that when they have more money later on, and you've gotten them interested in your cause and your organization, that it's really important to bring them, have them grow with you.
Right.
So that's why I think the social media presence, the Instagram, or yes, Facebook too, but definitely some of the other social media, you want to bring them in.
Exactly. One thing that you mentioned before, which I think it's interesting because I've had my share of working with various different boards and so on, and that could be very challenging because the point that you said that a lot of them, you have a board of so many people, and they have so many people with different opinions, and they have to agree upon something and so on. And because of the experience that you've had, and for as long as you have, and noticing what's probably the best scenario for any given organization, I could imagine that that could be kind of sometimes a little frustrating, especially when you know that this probably is the best route for them, knowing that organization and so on. But you may have some people on that board that may not know anything about what you're talking about, but they have a certain type of goal, they have a certain type of budget to work with, and everything else. So if he had an opportunity to, kind of give an overall general message to boards out there.
Oh, I have a message for boards out there.
I can see. Go ahead.
I have a message. No. And here's the thing. The boards are wonderful. They're volunteering their time.
Of course.
They're passionate about their organization. But I would say is that to, it costs money to make lots of changes. So if we've done 3 or 4 rounds of changes that might be built into the package, the cost of producing this piece, and now maybe the board's seeing it one more time and they go, oh, but wouldn't it be nice if we just did this? And it was funny because when I was at Publishers Clearinghouse, and I loved working from them, they were a great company. At certain point, unless it was the price was incorrect or there was like a code,
Right.
it went without the comma. It went because the color was pink and it wasn't, because it's dollars and cents, you don't want to hold up the press, you don't want to make more changes because time is money. And I think then when people maybe are hemming and hawing over this versus that, the word or the something, some of the minutia, and it is important. I'm not saying it isn't important, but at some point, it's kiss it to God and let it go, because you're gonna you need to get the message out there. You can always catch it on the next version, especially with the digital world. But this is, more of the print. Print is very important. When you print it, it's done.
Right.
But I would say try and hold off and go, well, is it really going to, if we don't do this one change, is it really going to affect someone not giving? And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to affect the outcome. The giver is going to give because of your story and your message, not because of one tiny thing that's bothering maybe 1 or 2 members. Does that make sense?
No, it does, and I'm glad I'm giving you an opportunity to share that out there. So for our viewers, who may contemplate having your services and so on, it's something for them to keep in mind,
Yeah.
and also for the board of directors also to kind of know that aspect as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to take it as far as we can. We want it to be thoughtful. We want it to look great, and we want the message on point. But and we can deliver all that. But at some point, you do have to go, okay, you know what? This is good enough. Let it fly, and let's see where the wings take it.
And as I can imagine, for various different things, but particularly in your industry, as far as technology continues to evolve, what are some exciting things that you see on a horizon, as far as for your field and your industry?
Well, it does. It moves very quickly. The technology is, and the new programs and the different media, social media that comes out, you kind of go, oh, well, which one should we jump on? Which one should we be paying attention to? For a smaller nonprofit, I say I rather you do less and do it consistently and well than try and follow the new shiny object. But what am I seeing that's interesting out there? Well, something I'm not sure about that. There are interesting new things coming out, but I would say for me as a designer helping nonprofits,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use me for your print. I can produce your digital. I want to be really good at that, and so I stay abreast of those programs, making sure that's current and everything for that space. But your new, I'm trying to think, you know how they have different programs you can do meetings in.
Right.
There's so many programs out there. I worked with this one company. They were switching. Seriously, in the 3 years I was with them, we switched to four different spaces, same page, and we're doing Zoom meetings, and we're doing Asana, and these different programs where you can correspond. And I said, if we have to keep learning these new spaces, we're taking valuable time away from the actual strategy and the mission. So some of the new technology out there can, it's not bad, it's great, but if you keep trying to jump on the newest one, is that making sense? It's not necessarily a space there you're going out in that is a new social media, but.
Well, it seems for you, as far as the integrity and the balance of it is more of a important thing for you.
I want to stay mission driven and produce the highest quality content.
Right.
And I rather see them do, if you have a small department, I rather see you do a few things really well than a lot haphazardly.
Exactly.
So I think you absolutely have to pay attention to it, and you go to your events and you see what's out there, but you can dip your toe in and and say, oh, okay, I think this will work for us, let's try this out, for the next event, or maybe our capital campaign, or we're going to do it next year this way. But yeah.
And Jeanine, do you have, I'm assuming that perhaps you do have, a few friends that are also in the same field, that you guys stay in touch with each other and talk about, maybe former students, I don't know if you're still in contact with them or whatever, and talk about, how things are going. The reason I'm asking that, because I know you're committed to working with nonprofits, and that's fantastic, because there's something about nonprofits as a first for profits. I'm just asking, there's a situation where a big company comes to you and says, I heard about the work that you do and I'd really like to have you. Would you jump on that?
You mean
a profit for profit company?
I work with for-profits.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I do. Okay. I have.
Okay.
I do. I work with marketing companies for their for-profits. It's about 20% of the business. I don't not like it.
Okay.
I enjoy it. I wouldn't say, depending on the project, if it was really interesting, I'd say yes to it. But if you go to my website, you see I'm very intentional about talking to nonprofits, because that's like my warm and fuzzy space, and I enjoy that. Also, when I work with clients, it can be me. But if they have a bigger project, I have colleagues that are photographers and writers and illustrators, developers. So, if we need a team, we pull a team together. But for like the mid-sized ones, the space I like working in with the print and the digital material, helping them do an annual report, helping them create all the collateral material for their capital campaign or their gala event. Those are some of my favorite things that I do, as well as their, like for schools, their alumni newsletters,
Right.
or some of the quarterly magazines for some of the larger ones. That I love doing that. That's my favorite stuff to do.
It's wonderful.
So.
Now, I know I've been asking a lot of questions. So is there anything that perhaps you would like to, our audience to know about, your passion, about the work that you do, or anything specifically that perhaps I maybe missed in asking you as a question that you probably like, oh my God, I wish, you would ask me this particular question?
Well, I was just reading The Ask by Laura Fredericks.
Okay.
And she has several books out on the Ask. The first one she had written was written specifically for nonprofits and development directors, and then now her later editions talks to people just asking for learning how to ask in your personal space, in your for work and entrepreneurs. It's relevant to anyone, and it was an incredible book. And not that I'm passionate about it, but I think it was a great book that I just finished reading. And for anyone in the marketing or development, I think it has to be a must-read. So that's one thing. Trying to understand better how, if I can understand better how the development people, the effort it takes, the courage it takes to, you're trying to build a donor relationship, and the ask could be a small amount and just as hard to ask one person for $100 as it is for another for $50,000. And so it was a really interesting book, and me reading that helps me help my people better. It helps me help them with their vision. If they have a question, they can say, oh, what do you think of this? And I might be able to, oh, well, did you consider X, Y, and Z?
Right.
So I've been doing things like that, reading more on the development side, which is less designy. But I've been finding that really interesting right now. That's where my head's been lately.
That's great. And is there anything else that you want to share? Or?
I feel really strongly about good design,
Mm-hmm.
and that just because someone, says they, can do your website for a small amount of money, and they
Right.
might be the board director, one of the directors, or someone on the board's nephew, or, or a flyer, or whatever they say. Oh, we can just do this with this person. I think your messaging has to be smart. I think it has to be thoughtful. I think that just someone knowing a program can, yes, get the information on the page, but when I look at the page, I read it, and I go, well, what's the most important message you need conveyed on this page? Because 4 headlines, not all of them can be important.
Right.
So how are we going to direct their eye? What's the most important thing? Don't tell me to put a box around it. Tell me, I want to know why does this need a box? And they say, oh, well, I really want them to understand that this is the most important point. Oh, okay. And then I I can help them solve that. But someone just maybe not having worked in design for years, or maybe just have learned some of the Adobe Suite programs, that's not going to make them be able to think and how to make the eye work through the page. They may not know that, when you're younger, your eyes are really good and you can read really small type.
Right.
But as you get older, and some of the, like I said, your bigger donors are older and they cannot read that type. That is uncomfortable for them and they're going to put it down.
Exactly.
And you also, just because you know a program doesn't mean you know that how it prints. Just because it looks good on screen doesn't mean it's going to print well.
Right.
And file formats and one thing I would really, really want the organizations to know is when you do have your logo produced, it's really, really important to keep your vector file. That is, this type of file is usually your logo is originally designed as a vector, and that it could have an AI tag at the end. It could be a PDF. It could be an EPS. But it's really important that you make sure it's labeled vector at the end of what an organization vector logo, so that when your printer, or if you want to get something embroidered on a shirt for a golf outing or a hat, or you want a big huge sign outside, you need that because it's scalable without quality loss. And the files that we're putting on websites might be a PNG or a GIF, which is the GIF,
right.
or the you might even see a JPEG. Those are smaller files, and they're fine for the web, and they're even okay for Word files if you're printing them on your printer in-house, but they're not print files. And so I have so many organizations, they're like, oh, I don't know what I did with that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, that's, really bad.
Right.
So I know I kind of jumped around, but I
feel
really, really strongly about having your vector file
right.
as your logo, and not losing it.
That's great. And one more time, Jeanine, can you please tell our audience, your name and your contact information?
Oh, sure. I'm Jeanine Davis. I'm a graphic designer. I love working with nonprofits. And my website's jldavisdesign.com. And you can contact me through that.
Well, I just want to take this opportunity, Jeanine, for coming on board as a guest. I enjoyed, having conversation with you.
Thanks.
And I just want to wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. And for you out there, thanks for another episode of Conversation with Dr. Silva. Please tune in again and have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.